Hello everybody, this is Dastikop. I welcome you for my 10 minutes cloud computing presentation. In this 10 minutes, I'll be defining cloud computing, listing its characteristics, mentioning its models, and also its applications. So we need cloud computing to meet our day-to-day activities. For instance, I need computing to send my email. Somebody needs to computing to edit his document or print the one. So computing is a basic requirement for our day-to-day activities. Cloud computing is a new way of organizing computing resources so that it can be supplied to each and every individual when, as and when he needs it. Before the advent of cloud computing, to avail computing means you have to buy a computer to begin with, then buy the software, then install them and start using them to getting your job done. For instance, if you are official working in a particular organization, then if you want to use, or if you want to create a documents, then you have to buy a computer, then a word processing software like Microsoft Word, and then start using it. In this form of traditional computing, was very expensive. For instance, you have to buy computer, for that you have to pay money. Then you have to buy software, for that you have to pay money. Then you have to install. That means it is to cost you time and effort. And finally, you want to also keep updated about whatever the upgradation that would come. So this means to getting a computing or to get computer was a cost. It was not a cost-effective method. You have to buy every time you need that. But cloud computing is a new savior for us. What it says is you don't have to buy computers to get computing. Computing and computers are separated. Cloud computing is expected to change this forever. The message of cloud computing is very crystal clear. When you need computing, only computing will be provided to you. You don't need to buy them at all. User who needs computing will not be forced to buy computers to avail computing or to get computing. So this idea of computing, of cloud computing is not very new. For instance, the other industries such as electricity and water, they use the same principle. So whenever somebody wants electricity, nobody will ask him to buy a generator. What is done is actually some electricity company will provide them the electricity. Similarly, when you want water or any other utility like petrol and all, you will be sold or you will be getting a amount of petrol or water that you need for your consumption. So this idea of supplying a utility is actually is the basis of cloud computing. So cloud computing provides all this as an utility. So this is the fundamental idea. Cloud computing are available. For instance, in cloud computing, you need storage and communication. Today, as you might have noticed, that storage is available for very less amount or very inexpensively. For example, you can buy many GBs of storage for less than 500 or so. Similarly, communication costs have come down so that actually you can send a message across the globe for very economically. So these are the two fundamental things which actually is used by cloud computing industry to build a new business. For instance, when you create an account on Gmail, it says that it will give you 15 GB of storage space freely for every user. Similarly, if you create an account on Facebook, it allows you to upload any amount of photos to there. So the reason why is this, since storage is very cheap, these companies allow you to create those databases and allow you to create store your images, and they will send you across anywhere. So this is the fundamental reason why cloud computing is happening today. Storage is cheap and it is possible to have this storage stored anywhere in the world and allow a user to use it from wherever. You may be noticing that there are millions of Facebook and Gmail users in India, but until very recently they did not have a data center anywhere in India. The reason is very simple. You can store data anywhere and you can communicate data to a user anywhere, and this is the fundamental concept of cloud computing. In this slide, I will be describing how does cloud computing work. A simple definition of cloud computing says that it is a model for delivering computing resources from the internet to the user. So the central building block of cloud computing is the internet. On the right side, you see a picture where in the middle of that actually you see a cloud. The cloud is a place where user gets all the resources that he want. Say for instance, the first user is coming to cloud computing to use a collaborative software. The second one is coming to use a software which helps him to create files and share them with the other users. The third one is coming to use a software like a communication software like email, which can help him to communicate with others. So this is the essential meaning of cloud computing. Cloud computing is an internet-based delivering system where resources are delivered to the user and they are actually developed by the service providers. NIST defines cloud computing as follows. According to it, cloud computing is a model for enabling ubiquitous, convenient, on-demand network access to shared pool of configurable computing resources. Let me explain each term in detail. Cloud computing is a model. By model is we mean that it works in a real world and it connects real entities. So the cloud computing resources are connected through internet to users and the service providers. Cloud computing is on-demand model. By that we mean that it is available 24 by 7 wherever you are in the world as long as internet connectivity is established. Cloud computing resources are ubiquitous in nature. What it they mean is they will be available at different locations. You can have access to cloud computing from your home or from your school or from your college or your hospital or from your vehicle, where different locations. Cloud computing resources also are very convenient to use. What they mean by this is actually it is like you can just have an internet connectivity in a device and you can start using the resources which are available on the cloud. It is for example like you going to ATM and availing money. You just go to ATM, swipe your card and get money as long as you have a balance. Similarly, cloud computing access is very convenient. And another quality of cloud computing is configurability. What it actually means is you can decide the quantum and duration of accessing cloud computing resources whenever you want it. For instance, you can say that I will use 5 minutes of internet activity and send my email. That's also allowed. Similarly, you can say that I will use cloud computing resources for 2 hours to edit my document. That is also available. In effect, cloud computing is actually a very flexible model. Hello again for this session of 1 minute cloud computing in which I'll be covering cloud characteristics. Cloud computing derives its power from the following characteristics. First one is called on-demand capabilities. Next is broad network access, resource pooling, rapid elasticity and measured service. On-demand capabilities ensures that a user will get resources 24 by 7. Broad network access ensures that user will get the computing resources on multiple devices like computers, laptops, mobile and other devices. Resource pooling ensures that user will never run out of resources because it is pulled from different locations. Rapid elasticity ensures that growing demands and shrinking demands are met gracefully. Measured service would mean that there is a transparency in the consumption. A user will be knowing how much of quantity of data that he is using at any given moment or how much of resource he is using for whatever the purpose. This will help him to plan properly and also act accordingly. Hello everybody, Ravindra welcomes you back to 1 minute cloud computing learning video session. In today's session, I'll be covering cloud service models. As you know, cloud computing is all about services and there are three fundamental service models which are there in cloud computing. And these three services actually correspond to three basic components of any computer system. As you probably know, a computer system consists of hardware, an operating system and an application. So the part of this service model where a hardware is supplied is actually called infrastructure as a service. And in the context of cloud computing, hardware always means a network which consists of a computer system and the memory part of it, storage part of it and network connectivity components. The second service model corresponds to an operating system. Any computer system only works when operating system is installed. So in the context of cloud computing, this operating system plus the network is actually called platform. The reason why it's called platform because a developer can use this platform to develop his application and offer it to an end user. The third one, which is most popular, is called software as a service. This corresponds to application component of any computer system which is actually used by the end user. So in essence, three basic models of cloud computing include infrastructure as a service, a hardware is given to you. In the context of cloud computing, that would mean a network, and the platform as a service in which a developer environment is provided to you, and software as a service in which actually an end user application can be given. Hello everybody, this is Ravindra Dastikop welcoming you all for my 1 minute cloud computing learning video sessions. In today's session, I'll be talking about deployment models. A cloud system is a generic system and it can be used for different purposes. For each purpose which is used is called a deployment of cloud computing. People have identified four distinct possibilities in using a cloud computing system. The first one is called public clouds, in which an organization, either a government or a company, will create a public cloud and make it accessible to the general public. Such a system which is meant for a public consumption is called a public cloud. For example, Gmail is one such public cloud. The other extreme of cloud deployment system is called a private cloud, in which an organization or a government will create a cloud and which will makes it accessible only to the internal people like students or employees or other internal members. So such a cloud where actually the access is restricted only to the internal people is called a private cloud. And a combination of private and public cloud is often necessary. So such a combination is called an hybrid cloud. Finally, there are instances in which a group of institutions which have a similar or identical interest can come together and create a cloud of their own. In such case, it's called a community cloud. For example, all the banks can come together and create a community cloud, or all the educational institutions can come together and create a particular cloud called community cloud. Hello everybody, this is Ravindra Dastikop. I welcome you all again for my 1 minute cloud computing learning video sessions. In today's session, I'll be talking about computing as an utility. Let me explain the idea of utility with a simple example. Most of us, when we want electricity, we don't buy a generator. Instead, we actually go to a service provider who provides electricity to us. These companies actually produce a lot of electricity in a place called power station, and they put poles and wires, and these wires will bring electricity to our homes and offices. The idea of generating a resource like electricity in large quantities and supplying it to users in small quantities is called utility. Cloud computing applies this idea of utility to computing itself. So in cloud computing, computing is supplied as an utility. The computing is produced in a place called data center, and this power is actually reaches the end user like you and me in our organizations, homes and offices through the internet. Hello everybody, this is Ravindra Dastikop. I welcome you all for my 1 minute cloud computing learning video session. In this session, I will be summing up a cloud computing phenomenon. Cloud computing has been defined as a model for delivering computing resources over the internet. So there are two parties involved in it. One is the service provider who generates those resources needed by the user, and the consumer on the other side will consume them. The cloud computing has been defined in terms of characteristics, 4 deployment models and 3 service models. The 5 identified characteristics of cloud computing are on-demand self-service, broad network service, resource pooling, rapid elasticity, and managed service. The 3 service models we identified are infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. And 4 deployment models which actually describe how a cloud computing can be used are public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, and community cloud.